I'm going to talk about individual doctors and the pharma relationship. Dr. Charles Sprung had touched upon the relationship between clinical research and a little bit about academician and the pharma industry. So what I'm going to touch upon is how big is this relationship? Does this relationship really matter if it does exist? What do our patients think about such a relationship, and what are we and the drug industry doing about it? Is there anything being done at all? I'll try to cover these 4 points in the next 15 minutes. How big is this relationship? Now, there is no data in Indian literature. We don't spend money in India, that's why. If you look at the Western literature, in 2002, in US, $12 billion was spent annually only on gifts and payments to physicians. Okay? And billions more spent on provision of free samples and direct-to-consumer advertising. Okay. Remember that pharmaceutical companies are one of the most profit-making businesses in the US. And if they have to spend $12 billion on us for gifts, they would definitely want something in return, isn't it? Now, let's look at what evidence shows. Physician-pharma industry relationship is very common, and if you look at most of the studies, about 90 to 95% of us have some sort of relationship with the pharmaceutical industry. And on an average, most of the studies show that a physician meets with industrial representatives 4 times a month and receive about 6 gifts per month. And the gifts can vary depending on the study. Okay, starting from 83% receiving just what we call simple gifts, going down to about 30% receiving payments. What is noted is that the dynamics of the relationship differed based on the specialty and the primary practice organization. Looking at that bar chart there, anesthetists are seen to be in this particular study to meet representatives about 2 times a week, whereas family physicians as much as 16 times, with the cardiologist and the internist meeting around about 9 to 10 times a week. The other interesting thing was the marketing efforts that the industry put into were focused mainly on physicians who they perceive to be able to influence prescribing behaviors. And who are they? They're physicians like what Dr. Sprung was talking about, who practice guidelines development, preceptors for doctors in training, and cardiologists. And it's also been seen that all of them had higher frequency of industry payment. Why cardiologists? A study has clearly shown that if a cardiologist writes down a prescription and the patient goes back to his family physician, the family physician very seldom changes those prescriptions and continues the same prescription. And all of us know very well about this review which came in the New England Journal about the surviving sepsis guidelines and how the industry had a lot of influence and the controversy surrounding that. I was looking at the Indian scenario, and to tell you the truth, there was no data there out in the literature. So we did a very quick survey in our hospital, and I was able to survey about 50 physicians. I do not know whether it's a real representation of the whole Indian scenario, because it's a corporate hospital that I work in, but it almost matched the US data. About 80 to 85% of our doctors did meet with medical representatives, and 75% of them did receive reimbursements. And if you look at the number of visits, it was again about 5 times a month, and again depending on the department or the specialty, it varied. The second question, does this relationship really matter? We always hear this explanation. I'm not influenced by all these gifts anyway, so what's the problem? Then next is, Surely something as inconsequential as a pen could not possibly influence my prescription behavior. Let's look into this a little bit more in detail. Every single study that has looked into physicians' behavior clearly shows that when you ask a physician, what do you think about your attitude? Would your prescribing behavior be influenced by this? No, is the majority answer. If the same group is asked a question, what do you think about your colleagues' behavior? Only 16% says no. They say, I think they get influenced. This was same that I saw in the small survey that I did in my hospital. So doctors are the same everywhere. Okay. Now one interesting study, I'm sure a lot of you would have read this. Now, that was the point of sale of an antibiotic in her hospital. If you look at it, for about 2 years, it's around about 50 units. And then the pharmaceutical company invites doctors to a seminar, one-day seminar, all fees paid, with a spouse in a holiday resort. That's the point of time when the seminar took place, and see what has happened to the sales. 10-fold increase. Okay. And after the whole thing, the physicians were asked, what do you feel about it? And majority of them said that their prescribing attitude would not change even if they went for a seminar, fully sponsored by the pharmaceutical company. There are different ways of looking at it. We can discuss about this at the end of the 15 minutes if time permits. So we know that if you get a large gift, maybe your prescribing attitude might change, but how about small gifts? Remember that the industry does research too. Okay, this is something that has come out of the former president of the Pfizer. Marketing is also very scientific. They look at what will influence the doctors the most. And remember that gifts have always been a time-honored marketing tool. It keeps doors open to communication, promotes friendship and cooperative relationship. Remember, pens and notepads are no more reminders. And also remember, we as human beings, when we are given a gift, we feel indebted and we feel that we should reciprocate. And this reciprocating rule is what is it's very potent, and it's what is being exploited easily. This is what I call the Hare Krishna strategy. So people who have traveled would have seen Hare Krishna in all the airports. They'll give you a flower or something, and then a donation. You have to donate to it, isn't it? So that's exactly what's happening with the small gifts. And clearly studies have shown that physicians who have been given drug samples are more likely to write new prescriptions of heavily advertised drugs than their peers, and they are less likely to use inexpensive drugs. I'm sure if we ourselves sit back and think, if we request a pharmaceutical company to give free drugs for one of our sick patients, they would do it without any hesitation, the full course. And then, if you look at it, we ourselves subconsciously will start prescribing that drug just because they helped us out at our time of need. And it has also been shown that physicians who request for addition of drugs to the hospital formulary usually have strong association with pharmaceutical companies. But at the end of all this, it really stands out that physicians are still in denial of the potential for the receipt of small promotional items to undermine their professional objectivity. Now, not everything that we do with the pharmaceutical companies are negative. There are some positive effects too. It helps us enroll patients to clinical trials, and without clinical trials we would not have had new drugs. We as physicians are able to provide with advice about new drugs that we want. And in a lot of cases, physicians and the representative interaction is what makes us be aware of the drug's safety and effectiveness and benefits. But again, beware, there is evidence that information provided by the pharmaceutical company may not always be actually absolutely correct and can be biased. So what do our patients think about this relationship? A study showed that about 50% of our patients do realize that physicians do take gifts, but when you ask them, do you think your physician has taken gifts? About 50% say they are unsure. Now, what do they think about a habit of taking gifts? You can see from the graph at the bottom that more than 30% of our patients strongly feel that even small gifts like pen and mugs can influence our decision about their therapy. So what are we doing about this? There are guidelines which have been put forward by the American College of Physicians, and the pharmaceutical companies by themselves have tried to regulate themselves. And here in India, recently we have had the Indian Medical Council stepping in and putting down some guidelines. But the issue with the guidelines have been, they have even though they've mentioned that you are not supposed to take gifts or not supposed to give out gifts, they have given leeway saying that you can have gifts, small gifts, which you think will not affect your objectivity in patient care. So it leaves a little bit of leeway for doctors, physicians, and the pharmaceutical companies to misuse. So in conclusion, what can we do about minimizing risks associated with industry relationship? We have guidelines which are not very clear. So always when there are guidelines which are not clear, it causes more confusion. So in this period of confusion, start by recognizing that such relationships are designed to influence our prescribing behavior. That would be the most important thing. Don't say that, no, by taking small gifts, I'm not going to get influenced. And make a point to make a change. Carefully consider the potential effects of these associations might have on our patients. Familiarize yourself with the guidelines and adhere to the guidelines. And remember that the dinners, trips, and other incentives that we accept are passed on to our patients in the form of higher drug prices. Thank you.